We had to convince the Black community
Mhm.
that we were going to handle their very important genetic information with
Yes,
respect and integrity and with
absolutely.
confidentiality. There are other companies in the industry after
Mhm.
we started
Mhm.
that were collecting the DNA of Black
I see.
people that
Wow.
weren't offering the same level of specificity, that
Yeah.
didn't have to meet the same standards of
Mm.
confidentiality that we did from our own people. So that
Mhm.
was a challenge.
Everywhere you go, you find opportunities, you find obstacles. Some people can see opportunities where others see nothing. Some people can see opportunities where others find obstacles. In today's episode, I am so honored to have Dr. Gina Paige joining us, I think from Washington, D.C. area, to talk about how she founded AfricanAncestry.com. Welcome aboard. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this virtual fireside. Dr. Paige, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me aboard.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This is my imagination of a little virtual fireside in the motherland. Now, unfortunately, there's no real fire. So all I could do is have a little mic that is illuminated. I hope it distills a little bit of warmth from my end to your end. And let us have a conversation about what got you started. Why did you start AfricanAncestry.com? And maybe first introduce yourself a little bit and then why you founded such a powerful organization that is changing lives.
Well, I am a co-founder of AfricanAncestry.com. We started the company in 2003. So this month, in the month of February, we celebrate our anniversary. And in
Mhm.
2025, it'll be our 22nd anniversary. So I am someone who comes from a family of entrepreneurs, a family of people who see opportunity and
Mhm.
take advantage of it to support themselves, their families, and their communities. That's part of my
Mhm.
DNA, and so it's great to be here to talk about African ancestry. Um, our story kind of has two parts because there are two co-founders.
Yes.
Um, the vision for African ancestry came from Dr. Kittles, who is my co-founder and a prominent geneticist, African
Mhm.
American geneticist, who really just wanted to know where he was from all
Mhm.
throughout his life as an African American child. He didn't have an answer to that question beyond Georgia. He
Mhm.
knew that his father's people were from Sylvania, Georgia. I don't remember where his mother's people are from.
Mhm.
But growing up and having an interest in science, he had an interest in people and biology and ultimately used that curiosity and his training
Mhm.
to be able to answer the question that many people of African descent in the Americas and the Caribbean have, which is,
Yes.
who am I? Where am I
Yes.
from? Knowing where we're from is critical to knowing who we are.
Uh,
So in the 90s, Dr. Kittles was part of a team from Howard University that was called to an excavation site in Lower Manhattan. They had been planning to build or preparing to build a federal building, and they unearthed a cemetery of enslaved Africans.
mhm.
And his responsibility, excuse me,
That's okay, please.
responsible for identifying the ancestry of those bones.
Mm.
And that made the media. And so
Mhm.
it was that at that point that the community learned that this was possible to use DNA to tell Black
Wow.
people where in Africa they were from.
Wow.
And so that is a case of there being a demand.
Mhm.
The switchboard at Howard University was inundated with calls, people trying to reach Dr. Kittles to get him to tell them where they were from in Africa. So
Fair
the
enough.
demand was there. And from economics and a business standpoint, the next step was to create the supply to fill the demand. And so that's where our partnership came to life. And I have a background, a corporate marketing background, corporate product management background. And so I was able to use the skills that I had developed in corporate America, launching new products and product line extensions to create this DNA product that has never existed before, to tell the group of people that I'm passionate about, which is Black people, who they are. And so that's how Ancestry was formed.
Wow, that is very interesting. Starting with a need, and a need that is combined with a skill that was already in existence. Your knowledge from corporate America, from having an MBA background in economics, married with the scientific ability to use these DNA methods to trace our origins. That's so powerful. Now, I found out that you identified your heritage to be Hausa and Fulani. And I grew up in a country, I grew up in Cameroon, which has both Hausas and Fulanis. And these are very, very, how do I put it? These are some of the most resilient, entrepreneurial, some of the toughest people that I know. Have you taken time to begin to unpack some of the intricate parts of your DNA and your other family members on the other side of the continent?
Well, I just recently visited Nigeria, where we were able to learn about the Fulani, learn about the Hausa. I also have a lineage that is Yoruba, and I've spent a decent amount of time in Cameroon, where, of course, as you said, there are Hausa and there are Fulani. So the things that I've been able to learn and glean and hear from others. One is that the Fulani are very beautiful people. So
very,
I
very beautiful, very slender, very beautiful. They're the best runners. When we go to school in Cameroon, you can run faster than Fulani guys. Now, they're also endangered. They're protected community because they tend to be cattle rearers. They're moving from place to place. So in Cameroon, they are protected, but not just by Cameroon, I think by UNESCO standards worldwide. And the houses are more stable, also cattle keeping, but the houses are also super, super entrepreneurial. And you may know this, one of the wealthiest Black person in the world is Hausa, Stroke Fulani. That's Aliko Dangote. I'm not
Oh,
sure
I
you're
did
aware
not
of it.
know he was Hausa.
Absolutely, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Well,
yes.
that's good to know in case we ever
Yeah.
meet one day.
Yes.
Well,
But
I come from a long line, particularly my Hausa lineage is on my father's paternal line. So my father's 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 father, going back 2,000 years, can be traced to the Hausa people. And that is one of the lineages in my family tree that is very entrepreneurial. All of my father and his 6 siblings are all entrepreneurs. His parents were business owners. And so and their parents, so we
yeah,
can trace that entrepreneurship back as well.
they say the apple never falls far from the tree, and there's also an African saying, African proverb that the markings on the skin of a leopard are never different from the one that has been from thousands and thousands of years before. So the markings on the skin are always about the same. But what still fascinates me is you were able to pursue this, even though it wasn't very proven that it was going to be as lucrative as what you've been doing in corporate America. I assume you were doing very well. So was it passion? Was it profit?
Hmm. Well, pioneers never take a proven path. There is no path for a pioneer. Before we launched this product, there was no company in the marketplace that could tell a person where specifically in Africa and which African ethnic group that they share
Wow.
ancestry with. So it had to be passion.
Overwhelming passion.
I think it was passion on the part of Dr. Kittles. On my part, it was the promise of helping to transform the way we as Black people view ourselves. That's very important. There wasn't this term, social responsibility, the
Yes.
term, oh gosh, what am I thinking of the term?
Corporate social enterprise, social
Yes,
enterprises. Yeah.
social enterprise. That term didn't
Wasn't
exist
very.
22 years ago, but that's
Yes.
really how we started. We didn't know,
Mm.
in 2003, DNA was not a commonly used acronym. In 2003, if you were Black, most of your understanding of DNA and exposure to DNA was either because of the history of scientific trials that were unfairly and unjustly performed on Black people, or it was used to exonerate Black people from crimes that they were accused of or convicted of, wrong convicted of.
Yeah.
And so we had a really steep hill, and we don't have a history of learning the positive benefits of being associated as African people.
Yes.
So there were a lot of hills, mountains, I would say, in front of us. And so, yeah, it was more of passion and purpose and promise
Yes.
than profit, for sure.
Okay. Profit came later because I would imagine when you started, you saw there's a problem. You had the passion to pursue it, and you had the skills to be able to open up the marketplace to discover that this is bigger than all of us. But I would ask, what were some of the early challenges that you faced when you launched? Because obviously it wasn't commonplace. Now it's gotten a lot of attention from all around the world. But what were some of the first challenges you faced when you first launched this project?
There were several challenges that we faced when we first launched this project, or this company, I should say. One was, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. One of the challenges was the pushback and the criticism that we received from the white scientific community.
Oh, wait a minute.
White scientists challenged the validity of the research and tried to force us to make our data available, our core competency available for their review. And we didn't do that. The research had been published in several major scientific journals, and that's all that was required. But there were those in the community that were vocal in the media saying, oh, this isn't possible. Oh, we haven't seen their data, all of these things to try and discourage people from believing
Adopting,
in, even though they do the same work. They just didn't have the data. They didn't have African data. So because we had African data, for some reason, this work wasn't our work. The same exact work doesn't have validity.
So you use similar methods.
It's the exact
similar methods, but they challenge your own they challenge your process, whereas they're using similar methods and procedures. Yes.
And then there also was a challenge, as I alluded to earlier, that, we had to convince the Black community that we were going to handle their very important genetic information with respect and integrity and with confidentiality.
Yeah.
When there are other companies in the industry after we started that were collecting the DNA of Black people. that
Wow.
weren't offering the same level of specificity,
Yeah.
that didn't have to meet the same standards of
Mm,
confidentiality that we did from our own people. So that
mhm.
was a challenge. And then another challenge was, and this challenge continues to exist today. There are Black people who don't want to be associated with Africa. They
Oh yeah.
don't they
And
don't
that's
believe that they're from Africa. They don't care that they're from Africa. They don't want to know where in Africa they're from.
mhm.
So that's a challenge. And then the last challenge I would say um, is the proliferation of mainstream companies
Mhm.
co-opting our company name, co-opting our company positioning,
Mhm.
but not delivering the same product. And
Right.
so they cause confusion in the marketplace. And
Marketplace.
because they are owned by white people, they are
Mhm.
able to get significant investment from
Mhm.
white investors, where to the point where they don't have to be profitable, or they
Hmm.
didn't have to be profitable. And we didn't have that same uh,
That's unfair.
investment. And so
Yes.
we continue to be challenged by companies that charge less
Mhm.
for a completely different product that they
Mhm.
position as the same product.
Hmm. So you express you are hesitant to open your books and say, "Hey guys, this is what we do." But over time,
That. No, there is no company that gives their, and we didn't have a patent, but it's the same as,
mhm.
showing your hand.
Yeah.
When you play
So
stage, you don't show your hand.
so over time, did some of those critics move? Did they come to understand, hey, you are just doing the same quality of work and using DNA as others do? Have they moved their positions, or they're still critical and they're still doubtful of your processes?
Um, they understood in the beginning. They
Hmm.
understood exactly what we did, and they understood the power of
Mhm.
what we were doing, which is why they were critical.
Mm.
So they understood what happens when Black people, what is possible
Mhm.
when Black people know where they're from and know who they are, and don't walk around with a victim mentality,
Mhm.
and come excuse me, come together and collaborate and cooperate to improve their communities here and on the continent. They understand
Mhm.
that much
Yeah.
better than we do. So it was never any confusion. They just wanted to cause confusion.
Mm.
And now, over time, arguments go away, the
Yeah.
attitudes don't change. Some of our competitors called us snake oil salesmen when
Mhm.
they were saying they could do the exact same thing we could do and couldn't, but they were calling us snake oil salesmen. So, you know,
Yeah, people can always call others whatever name they want to call. But I think if you've been in business for 22 years,
yep.
I am sure there's a certain part of the proof is in the pudding. Obviously, people are taking advantage of understanding what you offer. But before you got into this space, because this channel is particularly dedicated to telling the story of unsung heroes with untold stories, especially people who are blazing a new trail. Before you started blazing this trail, take us to where you grew up in US and talk a little bit about some of your childhood experiences growing up in a home where people are entrepreneurial inclined, because a lot of our viewers are business people. I see myself as a business guy, a solopreneur, a small business owner who is trying to solve a problem, which is ignite conversation around topics of common interest, especially if there's a market relevance or business relevance to it. Take us to where you grew up, which part of the United States, what kind of home?
So I'm a child of Washington, D.C. And
Good for you.
when I grew up in Washington, it was known as Chocolate City. So I grew up in a city that was predominantly Black. that have.
Chocolate City. Chocolate tastes very good. I mean, nothing wrong with chocolate, right? Everybody wants chocolate. And just a little insight here, I'm not cutting you short. No, Cameroon produces a lot of chocolate, a lot of cocoa. So
Yeah,
is Nigeria. So is Ghana.
yeah.
So is Ivory Coast. Those 3, 4 countries, they probably produce more than 50% of the cocoa in the world, with the exception of Brazil. So talk about growing up in Chocolate City and your family and
Yeah, and so, my parents were students at Howard University. My extended family were Howard University graduates. My uncle was a professor and then a provost and then a vice president at Howard University. So I grew up in an environment where there was a Black professional
Mhm.
class of people. There were Black-owned businesses.
Amazing.
Black people were successful. And
Mhm.
so I came into the world feeling good about being a Black person, understanding that I am a person of African descent, that
Mhm.
those kind of things were never in question.
Mhm.
The ability to take advantage of opportunities was
Mhm.
never a question, given
Mhm.
my upbringing in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
I went to Stanford University for college.
That's what I noticed.
And then I got an MBA from the University of Michigan
Mhm.
School of Business. And so I have had a pretty traditional educational path,
Mhm.
but always knew that I wanted to work for myself. I saw as I mentioned, my grandparents owning
Mhm.
businesses, my aunts and uncles owning businesses, eventually understanding that my father owned a business. And so um, I've always, I've always been supported. I've always been encouraged.
Mhm.
And I try to do that for others as well.
Absolutely.
It's all about what you're exposed to.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I have had the benefit of being exposed to professionals. I've
Mhm.
been exposed to Black excellence.
Mhm.
And that's what I
No
portray.
wonder that's what you bring to the world. And
Yeah.
that's what you bring to the world. I see you as a bridge builder. I don't know if you see that.
Mm,
Yes, you benefited from a heritage that is super resilient, entrepreneurial, as well as academic inclined. And now you're forging new ties, new connections between US, America, and the motherland. And from what I gathered, you've traveled a lot throughout Africa. That surely comes from a place of passion. It's not from a place of despondence. It's not from a place of lack. So tell us about your interest and your passion for the motherland. Yes, you've acknowledged the fact that it's important to be connected, but what other things do you see as you travel the continent? Because I see a world of opportunities in Africa. I grew up in Africa, went to school in Africa, I started in a classroom in Africa, in Asia, in America. Nowhere was I challenged. Nowhere was I challenged more than in Africa. So
mm.
I've grown up with that perspective. But tell us, what's your passion about Africa, and share with us a couple of tales and stories from being to the motherland, which I still find very unique, even though I live here at the moment.
Well, if I'm correct, if my memory serves me correct, I was introduced to the beauty of Africa by my best friend's mother. We were best friends from 5 years old. And
Mm,
her mother, Diane Cohen, may she rest in power, she traveled back and forth to Senegal, as I remember. She may have also gone to Cote d'Ivoire, but
mhm,
she would do import and export. Their
mm,
home was full, I mean, just overflowing with African art. She
mhm,
always had the most beautiful jewelry and
mm,
clothing that, her style was just very
mhm.
African
Very
based.
unique. Yeah.
Um, and so I always have seen Africa as a beautiful place.
Mhm,
I've always known that Africa was not a monolith. I've always known that Africa is comprised of many countries.
mhm,
And I've always known that there are stereotypes, negative stereotypes that we've been fed about
Mhm.
Africa. So as an adult, I can look back on being a little girl and seeing Africa through a positive lens because I am.
Powerful. Mhm.
I traveled to Africa for the first time to Dakar, Senegal, when I was a junior in college. I had
Wow.
spent my 2/3 of my junior year abroad studying in
Mhm.
France,
Mhm.
and many of my friends were Senegalese students
Mhm. Mhm.
also studying in France. And
Mhm.
so um, I, would talk about them to my parents and send postcards and letters. And my father met a woman on the subway one day, the metro here in DC, and he told her that I was in France, and she told him that DC and Dakar were sister cities, and that they
Mhm.
had an exchange program, and that there
Mhm.
was one spot left to go from
Wow.
DC to Dakar. So I got that spot.
Oh my God.
Came home from my junior year. I
Yeah.
spent the summer in Dakar, and I can tell you that the first thing I noticed driving from the airport was people carrying
Stuff
whatever on their
on
head,
their heads.
baskets, bundles.
Talking about carrying stuff on their heads.
Yes.
I can carry literally anything, and they say it's my superpower, but I say no, it's not a superpower. It's just in the DNA. So I can balance anything on my head at any time. Unfortunately, that one is falling, but yeah, if you admire that, I'm sure it's so natural for people to carry their stuff over
Well,
there.
I thought it was a stereotype.
Oh.
I didn't realize that that's what really happened. I thought that the white media was
Mm.
somehow portraying that as a negative thing. And so when I saw them, we're driving by and I see all these people, I was like, "Oh, this is real. This is really happens."
And do you know the best people who carry that?
The kids.
Nobody carries it better than the Fulani women. I
Ah,
kid you not. Okay, I'm Bantu. We carry, but the Fulani women and the Hausa women, they carry huge, big, tiny, very little. It's like almost nothing on the head, and they walk so sexy. You cannot beat those women, and they walk so fast. They're so skinny. They're so slender. You want what do they eat? You wonder what do they eat? And maybe sometimes they have a baby on the back. So
right.
my point there being, there is beauty in really stepping out and seeing the real world, because sometimes I might be stereotyped, but sometimes whenever I put something on my head here, people think it's a superpower. Maybe it's a stereotype, but at the same time, I don't care. I use it as something that defines me. From when I speak in front of audiences, every now and then I put something that like, they're stunned. So yes, African women they can perform magic, and one of them, and men as well, they can carry stuff on their head and walk with their hands free.
Yeah. And
Anyway, go
like
ahead.
you said, carry babies and
Carry.
do other stuff while they're walking. But having traveled, I think I've traveled now to maybe 10 African countries, and
Mhm.
there are many things that I've learned, but I think probably the most fulfilling is traveling with people to the place that they call home, the
Home.
place
Yes.
that we trace their
Yes.
ancestry to.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing can beat that. I love to
Yes.
tell the story of how the first time we traveled to Cameroon with a group
Mhm.
called the Arc Jammers.
Mhm.
They are a group of international artists and music lovers,
Mhm.
um, but they who want to reconnect
Fair
Black
enough.
people in Africa, and the founders are Cameroonian. Anyway, there were about 54 people who had taken our test who all met at Dulles Airport to take this flight to Cameroon. And when they got to the airport, they were African Americans who traced their roots to the Iwando or the Tikar, the
Yeah. Yeah.
Mbe,
Yep.
or wherever.
Mhm.
And by the time we landed in Cameroon, they got off the plane calling themselves Cameroonian Americans. That was their identity as they each stepped on
Imagine.
the plane.
Imagine how transformative that is.
Just from the flight.
Yeah.
And
Imagine
then
that.
after being in country for maybe 2 or 3 days, they were Camericans. And so
Wow.
that is a name
Americans
that
changed.
has stuck. It is a name
Okay.
that has stuck. And
No
so,
kidding. I did
um,
not even know about that. I'm cool. It's good that I know about that now because I need to know some of those Americans because
yeah,
can,
and it's a wonderful thing to watch people, and many, if not most, if not all of these people were traveling to the continent for the first time.
Mm,
And so that's just such a transformative
mm,
moment, a
yeah.
transformative experience for a
Yes.
Black person
Yes.
to step foot on African soil,
Yes.
regardless of the country. But then
Exactly.
the next
Exactly.
level is when it's the country that your roots are found in.
Yes.
You just
Yes.
you can't even explain it.
Can't even explain it. And then you start connecting with the people and you start to notice that, especially when you move out of the cities, even in the cities, people are very comfortable. They don't, they don't judge too much just because you do not grow up there. They're very welcoming. They are very
Oh,
open
yeah,
to learning.
absolutely.
Yes. So that's really something that I hope more people can discover because those that have gone, some of them have decided to stay there. So have you had any case in which some of your people go, some of the ones that have discovered the DNA go, and they fall in love with the culture and they say, not coming back so soon, or I'll come back when I'm making plans to return and maybe retire because there's a huge community of people that I see now and are moving to Rwanda, to Botswana, South Africa, of course, Ghana, which has been a big pool, and maybe Senegal. I don't know much about Senegal, but I see Ghana is doing a good job of opening the doors and having a program to help people who choose to settle back to settle quietly and have good lives. Have you had any cases of some people through your program who want to say, you know what, we're going to call the mother continent home someday?
Of course, yeah. I mean, there are some people who take an African ancestry test because they want to decide where to visit first, which
Look at
African
that.
country to visit first, or
Wow.
where they want to live. We've
Mhm,
taken groups to Sierra Leone on what we call African ancestry family reunions. These are specially curated birthright journeys home to your
mhm.
country of ancestry. And beginning in 2021, Sierra Leone started offering citizenship based
Wow.
on African ancestry DNA results.
Wow.
And so we
Hmm,
have seen many people who have invested in Sierra Leone, who
mhm,
have lived, who have returned and or have
mhm,
bought a place or rent a place there to live. They go back
mhm,
and forth. There's one sister who married a Sierra Leonean man. So now she and
mhm,
her husband live in Sierra Leone. Uh,
mhm,
there is, so yes, we see that. We have seen that, of course, in Ghana, people who have taken our test and not necessarily have Ghanaian roots, but have
mhm,
decided to um,
mhm,
expatriate in
mhm,
Ghana. And then I don't know of anybody. We also have traveled to Cameroon quite a bit. I don't know of anybody who has done that yet, but there are people who definitely
mhm.
invest, start
Okay.
philanthropic organizations, or support
Yeah.
organizations that they've met while they were there.
Okay. Being Cameroonian, I'm going to be biased just for a minute. Also, the next biggest superpower next to Cameroon is Nigeria. Who are some of those that you found to be of Cameroonian heritage or Nigerian heritage that maybe some big names? I've heard some big names, maybe, but coming from you is far more authentic than if I just read about it online. Because you and
Yeah.
Dr. Kilos, you are the people that you know this better than anyone else.
Well, I mean, Cameroon has produced many artists and artisans.
Like
So,
Quincy
we've
Jones.
placed people like Quincy Jones,
Mm,
Taraji P. Henson,
mm.
Cheryl Lee Ralph, who is an EGOT. She's won all the awards.
Wow. Okay.
Uh,
Surely I need to find out more about her. Okay.
yeah, Lamont Rucker. Uh,
Is it
those
Chris
are
Rock? Is Chris Rock one?
No, we
Okay.
traced Chris Tucker to the Mbundu people in Angola.
Okay.
Um,
How about Chris Rock?
No, he hasn't taken our test.
Oh, okay. Kevin Hart?
He hasn't taken our test.
Okay, all right.
To my
But
knowledge, to my knowledge.
okay, okay.
Um, and then, one of the very first celebrity or notable that took our test was LeVar Burton. And
Yep.
at the time when we launched, we were being called the 21st Century Roots. And so
Mm,
we thought it was only fitting that the actor who played Kunta Kinte should know
yep.
where he was from. And we traced LeVar Burton to Nigeria. We also traced the actor Jeffrey Wright
Mm-hmm.
to Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Omarosa, we've
Almost.
traced to Nigeria. So
Okay. Wow.
yeah.
Wow. 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 That's interesting. So you're continuing to travel every so often. Is it part of the program when you travel, or you do the travel just out of interest and family reasons?
I wish I had time to travel just for interest. So no, when I travel, most of the time it is because of African ancestry family reunion. So this
Mm,
month we just came back from Nigeria, which was our inaugural
mhm.
African ancestry family reunion to Nigeria. And I have to say that um, I'm very, very glad that we went to Nigeria. Unfortunately, that's one of the countries that gets hit the hardest with
Yes.
negative stereotypes. And
Yes.
so much so that when people get Nigerian results, there are people who get Nigerian results who are upset. They don't want to be, they don't want those roots because
Oh my God.
they don't have any positive
Yeah. Yeah.
imagery of
Mhm.
Nigeria.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that we went because not only were the people so kind
Mhm.
and so warm and
Mhm.
so welcoming and so
Mhm.
gracious.
Mhm.
Many of the people we met got it. They were like, "Welcome home. That's incredible. You mean you were able to find out that you're from here? Wait a minute."
Mm.
We went into a meeting with some commissioners and they were fighting over us. Like, the majority of the delegation has Yoruba
Yeah.
roots. One person was Igbo, a
Mhm.
couple of us were Fulani. I was also Hausa, and they
Mhm.
were like, "No," because we don't know which village. We don't know which state. We don't know which village. We only know the
Yeah.
people, and they're like, "No,
Yes.
you're from Katsina." And so then someone would come to say, "Well, you're Fulani. Where are you from?" I said, "Katsina." They told me I'm from Katsina. No, you're also from Amawara. Or out of whatever. I don't. It was something like that. Out of my.
Yeah.
So it was just, to get that kind of reception where people understood and they wanted
Mhm.
to teach us and tell us more about the culture, and they wanted
Yes.
to make sure that we were having experiences
Yes.
that would be meaningful and informative
Yes.
was and we got to visit. We didn't just stay in Lagos. We also went to Oshogbo, we went to Ibadan, and we went to
Mhm.
Abuja. So we got to see a small part of
Yeah.
a small diversity
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
that exists within Nigeria, because that's a humongous place. There's
Huge.
no way
Huge. I mean, almost
it's
250 million is
yeah.
a
And even in
humongous.
Cameroon,
Yeah.
we fly into Douala,
Mhm.
we travel to Bafoussam, to
Mhm.
Fuman, to
Okay.
Yaoundé, and then end up
Okay.
in Kribi. So we
Okay.
have a diverse set of experiences so that
Okay.
people can really be immersed in the culture.
Yeah. Next time you go, don't forget to cross over to the English speaking section. Uh, of course, these are all colonial landmarks, but you sense still another flavor of the culture.
Mhm.
And I grew up in the English speaking section, spent a lot of holidays in Douala. So I have inherited both cultures in many ways. But there's some small flavors, some small approaches to the way that things are run that you will see there's a little bit of a difference between the two.
Yeah, the
Um,
first trip we went to the north, we went to,
Garoa?
Garawa.
Okay,
But
Garoa,
then
yes.
after that, they told us we shouldn't go there, so
Okay,
in a large group, so we haven't been to that part of the north since, but
yes.
we definitely want, because we have people who we trace to the Masa, the
I
Masa,
see.
the
And the
Koto.
Garoua area, most of the houses and Masa are in the northern portion, if I may interject. Wow, interesting. Now, if I could ask you to choose of the countries you visited, which one are you more inclined to go back to?
Well, I definitely want to go back to Nigeria. 12 days was not enough. Senegal is my favorite.
Okay, okay.
So,
And your
um,
French is good, so Senegal would be a natural. So
yeah,
that's cool.
Senegal was my first, and it's my favorite. Chebagin
Mhm.
is my favorite food in the whole world.
What
Um,
what is that? What type?
Chebagin,
Okay, I don't think I know that. Is it
it's
okay?
fish and vegetables,
Okay,
and
fish.
you
Okay.
can have it with the jollof rice.
Yes.
But I'm also looking forward to visiting Cote d'Ivoire. I haven't been there yet. I really would like to visit there. I'd like to
Mhm,
visit Togo. I mean,
mhm.
there's so many places. I want to go
There's
to
so many.
every I want to go to Guinea-Bissau. I want to go to
Yeah.
every West African country.
Yes.
Angola, Gabon. I know those
Yes.
are farther south, but
Yes. Like I said, I grew up in Cameroon. I worked in Southern Africa. I worked in Botswana and South Africa. I visited Namibia, visited Zimbabwe, and they a bit more arid, so more like the northern part of Cameroon, Garoua area. But what I also found is that even down in the south, people are still very chill. They're also very humble. They're also very welcoming, and I didn't necessarily feel like I was out of place. But what still strikes me is that in the West, the media still continues to misrepresent a lot of things. Like even Nigeria, you think that Nigeria is a war zone, but this is one amazing country where people work so hard and they're so smart and they can make a way anywhere on earth and survive. And they can survive anywhere. So people don't give enough credit to some of the true stories of people overcoming, especially when they come from the continent. But in your travels, do you find ways, opportunities to bridge the gap between immigrant Africans and African Americans? Because for whatever reason, sometimes there's some sensitivities, and I have no idea why there should be any sensitivities. But I feel that, like the Jewish people, whether you are born and raised in Israel or you've been overseas for long, they get along very well. Why is it that some of our people sometimes don't get along?
I don't know that I can answer that. My hypothesis is because we're fed negative stereotypes both ways. So when when on the continent, in different countries on the continent, the imagery that has been for years, for decades, that has
Mhm.
been shared about Black people, Black Americans, is not positive. We're lazy, we're thugs, we're pimps, we're prostitutes.
I did not get fed any of that. It didn't reach me in Cameroon. I'll be very honest at
Well, but
all. But maybe there are some places, but
it
I
is
did
what
not get fed that because when I lived there, I saw images of people that are working hard and succeeding against all odds. When I lived in Asia, most of my Chinese friends would say, "Man, if I could choose, I want to be African American because these are the coolest people in the world. These are the people that are dominating media in almost every single way." So I think maybe that some portions may be getting the wrong information, some portions are getting the positive information. So I just want to give that as a true personal account.
Yeah, but I also have met people who have come here for college, have gone to
Mhm,
universities,
mhm.
and have been told the minute they set foot on campus, don't associate with the African American students.
Hmm.
The administration tells them to not
Wow.
associate with African American students. So, you know,
Yeah.
and then we don't get anything positive. Yeah, the music, of course you're going to hear about Beyonce and Michael Jackson and the music and the dance and the culture. Our culture is global,
Mhm.
and our culture is
Yes.
inviting
Mhm.
and is accepted
The
across
world.
the world, but
Yeah.
the culture there isn't always
Mhm.
representative
Mhm.
of
Of the people.
other images that are
Mhm.
exported about.
Mhm.
So, and again, we're not taught that there's anything positive coming from Africa. Historically, we have not been
Mhm,
taught that.
mhm,
So I don't know. I mean, I've one of the things I've noticed over the past 22 years of doing this work is the evolution of the term diaspora.
mm. Is it getting popular and positive, or is it getting
It's
lost
not
in translation?
positive or negative, it's the definition. So it
Okay.
used to mean
Mm,
people, the sixth region, the sixth
mm,
region of the African Union, people of
mhm.
African descent living
Yes.
outside of Africa.
Yes.
Now it seems that instead of referring to Americans, North Americans, South Americans, people from the Caribbean, the diaspora now includes people like you
Mhm.
who live
Migrated.
in the United States, but who are maybe first generation or second
Yeah.
generation. It's kind of encompassed all the groups, and now I
Mhm.
feel like it's moving towards the the people who have immigrated to the
Mhm.
Africans who have immigrated to the United States.
Mhm.
And so now the Americans, people who are from the Caribbean, the descendants of those who were enslaved are being called the historical diaspora. So it's just interesting
Mm.
how this term is evolving and shifting and trying
Yeah.
to account for the differences and the similarities between people.
Hmm. But what I see is, I sense it. Maybe I'm wrong. There's a churning. There is a pollination that is taking place, that is opening up people's eyes, and they're seeing wider and wider. Whether it's through the interactions, which are a good thing, or it's through the conversations or through education, I feel that increasingly over time there will be more understanding. You being a social entrepreneur now, with the mind of a business person, do you see any initiatives that will be able to help to build new bridges of understanding, not division? Because I think when there's understanding, there are more opportunities for business and not confusion. Do you see any initiative that could meld or create this new potpourri of or melange, so to speak, or new jollof of white rice, blue rice, green rice, all the people of same similar diaspora, just like the Jewish are very proud of their own diaspora. What do you think? Are there any initiatives? Are there any ideas that you as a business person and also a social entrepreneur could bring to forth, or you see in existence?
Well, I mean, I think what we do is the baseline of it, is the foundation, is showing people their tangible connection to a place,
Mm,
setting the foundation for them to learn
mhm,
more about who they are, which means
mhm,
they have to learn about the people
mhm.
in those countries and in those groups. To me, that's the first step.
Okay.
There are organizations like ADDI run by Ambassador Arikana
Mhm,
Chiambori Kwao that
mhm,
are developing major
mhm,
initiatives to reconnect and build bridges.
mhm,
I'm seeing more of our civic organizations like the NAACP, like Zeta Phi Beta sorority or Sigma Gamma Rho sorority, taking large groups of people to
mhm,
Africa through
mhm,
travel, using tourism as a way
mhm.
to bridge the gap. So I think it's happening through tourism. I think it's happening through media and entertainment. Afrobeat
Education. Mhm.
artists are listened to. Afrobeats, you can find Afrobeats in every city of every country in the world, probably.
Here's the coolest part. Not cutting it short. Even in Asia,
Yeah,
Afrobeats is so popular because my daughter grew up in Singapore. She's like, they have Afrobeats
yeah,
right there. I'm like, I could not believe it.
a whole world. And
Mhm,
then, with the growth of streaming,
mhm,
you're able to see more movies from other countries, and
mhm.
so the gatekeepers are gone.
Okay.
There's nobody who's necessarily deciding what we get to watch. We
Mm,
have we have access to more
mhm,
books we have access to more more movies, more films, more documentaries to get an accurate. But in terms of actual movements, in terms of actual programs, what comes to mind is ADDI.
Okay. There's one here in Dallas that I have been exposed to what they do. They call it the African Think Tank, and they bringing people of all African heritage together to talk about community issues, how to work out differences, how to help those who want to invest on the continent, and so on and so forth. And they're still very new, but the quality of work that I see them doing is very powerful. For example, they have a program every summer for children to get taught some content about the continent, because Africa is so massive, 1.2 billion people. It's hard to think that anyone would take an interest in that if the people that are connected to Africa don't take an interest in that and start sharing that with their children. So I've come to admire their programs very much, and I will probably share some of what they're doing with you, so that since you are a connector or bridge builder, you'll be aware of what they're doing. But maybe we'll start to wrap up here. If you had advice for someone who is of African descent, who is a social entrepreneur, what are these other opportunities you're seeing in the marketplace that could help bring people together? And by the same token, maybe turn some of those opportunities of bringing people together into dollars. Are there some new opportunities, new areas or investment, collaboration, pollination?
I think that there's a lot of opportunity. There seems to be, I'm not an expert, but there seems to be a lot of opportunity on the product side. So importing and exporting of products,
Okay.
products that are produced on the continent. We're seeing a lot of beauty products come, things based on shea butter, for example,
Okay.
being imported into the United States, exported from African countries. But I think products are a good way for us to learn about each other and to learn about our cultures.
Okay.
And you don't see a lot of them. So to me, that says there's an opportunity, right?
Okay.
I
Yes.
was in a spa-like setting in Nigeria, and they didn't have any Black-owned hair care products.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
were using,
Most coming from Asia. Am I right?
well, the ones I know, I did notice some American ones, but they were
Okay.
not Black-owned.
I see.
I wasn't, so I was attracted to the ones that were familiar.
Yeah.
But I think that's a huge opportunity. All of the hair care products here
Thank
that
you.
have been developed for our hair,
Thank you.
I think that that's an opportunity. Even hair.
Thank you. I have to give a Vuvuzela blast there, because those are the real gems that I believe can help inspire some people. So this Vuvuzela I bought from Johannesburg Airport, sounding it for Dr. Paige for giving some new gems. Entrepreneurs out there, listen to this guru, because she's about to give you some new opportunities. So hair, I got no hair, but I know a lot of sisters, I have two daughters who have all their hair, and I can definitely invest in that. So okay, hair is one. Where are the
Yeah.
other ones?
Well, hair care is one.
Hair
The
care. Thank
actual
you.
hair is another.
Okay.
I have a very good friend who has launched a line of synthetic hair.
Wow.
Why not use hair that's, manufactured by Black folks
Yes.
instead of the others? And the other thing, I think, I'm not so well versed in this, but I'm also friends with another sisterpreneur here in Washington, D.C., Rahama Wright, who owns Shea Yaleen. And she works with women's cooperatives who produce shea butter for
Sure.
that. Rahama's company then turns into manufactures and turns into beauty care products. But this idea of supporting women-owned businesses or women entrepreneurs, microfinancing, micro entrepreneurship. I
Yes.
think that's a very easy way
Thank you.
for the average person to be able to support opportunity building. I don't know how exactly to do that, but I know that it exists and I know that it's not that difficult.
In fact, someone out of DC area, DMV area, founded a fintech company in that area. So in the West, you have the 5 C's of credit, right? But in African culture, the 5 C's of credit don't necessarily apply. So she created a program that is based on African culture and what they call in Cameroon and Nigeria, Jangi system, to allow people to take products or get loans to run companies without having to go to a formal bank. Because if they go to the bank, you can meet the 5 C's, you're kicked out. So she ran a very successful business in that area for quite some time until COVID decimated it. But otherwise, you are absolutely right. Fintech is another area where if you can actually embed elements of the culture, it can be very successful. So Doc, keep going if there are a couple of others. If you have more, but no pressure if you have none.
I wasn't prepared for that question. That's
Okay.
what I got right
Okay.
now.
No, it's cool. But you already gave us three very solid ones: hair, hair care, and finance and fintech. Okay. All right. Those are really powerful ones, and I'm very grateful for that. We're starting to wrap up here. If you had to choose a favorite book you've read written by an African, and I know you're abundantly immersed and steeped in those written by African Americans, but if you had to pick one from the continent, which one would you say piqued your interest quite a bit?
You know, my favorite book of all time was written by a woman from the Caribbean. I don't know if she's Martinique or Guadeloupe, French-speaking Caribbean, but it was about Africa. It's
Mm-hmm.
Marise Condé. She left us
Mm-hmm.
last year, and it's called Segu, and it's
Sick. Okay.
historical fiction about the spread of Islam throughout
Mm-hmm.
West Africa and how Islam sort of created these systems, some of the systems that
Mm-hmm.
exist in West Africa today. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to cheat. She is an author of African descent, but the story is squarely an African one.
Fair
And
enough.
um, that's to me, that's the best book I've ever read in all
Wow.
my years.
Wow. Okay. I've never heard that one, but I've heard her name, so I need to go check out that one. And you mentioned your favorite food is Senegalese, and I've not been to Senegal yet, but I grew up eating peanut butter sauce. Cameroon
Mm.
is good, but when I ate the Senegalese one in Harlem, I nearly lost my mind. If I had money, I would have made a trip to Senegal that year. So I give big kudos to Senegal. So, what is your second favorite African food, if you don't mind?
I don't know. I think Cameroon has the next, and I'm not just saying this because you're Cameroonian, but
Thank you. I appreciate that. No, I mean I'm giving another vuvuzela blast there. No, okay. Is it jollof?
food in Cameroon is
Please
delicious.
tell me that Cameroon jollof is better than Nigerian jollof or
I
Ghanaian
don't get
jollof.
involved in Jollof wars. Senegal all day. I don't get involved in the Jollof wars. But
Okay.
that the first time I visited Cameroon, what's the dish with the greens and
Oh,
it's
ndole. Ndole.
indole. I
Ndole.
hated it. I
Okay.
hated indole, but now I love it.
It's a
So
little bit bitter though, so
so with some grilled shrimp or grilled prawns
yeah.
and indole, I'm good all
Okay.
day
Thank you.
in Cameroon.
Thank you. And if it goes with some sweet plantains, that doesn't hurt. It will balance it up a little bit. And what's your favorite city, if there is one so far?
Dakar.
Dakar. Oh, yeah, I remember you're a little bit biased. It was Dakar. Now you're making me very anxious to go visit Dakar. Uh, I don't yet have the opportunity to go. Friend goes there every year with students from DC area. He's a professor at American University. He goes there with students every year. He's asked me to join, and I couldn't find time. But now I'm tempted to join. So, Dr. Page, if there's anything that you like to say to people of African diaspora, whether they were born and raised in America or the Americas or in the motherland, as a visionary, as an entrepreneur, as someone who has significant interest in people of this background, what would you say to them?
As someone who loves Africa, studies Africa, and promotes African cultures, I think it's important for all of us as children of who are the children of Africa to understand that we get to claim the best continent on the planet.
Mm,
And we get to claim the continent where civilization began. We get to claim the continent that has people who invented everything that we use today pretty much as human
mhm.
beings. The African influence on the world is unparalleled, and that means that that's our birthright.
Yes.
And so we should take advantage of all of the benefits that our birthright affords us.
Mhm. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much, Dr. Page, for making the time. It's been an absolute pleasure, especially because I call out of the blue and you acknowledging and accepting and showing up. It means the world to me. I am a nobody. You've been on all the big stages. So for you coming to us really means a lot. And we're so grateful. And I would like everyone who is part of the Story Warrior podcast to get to check out African Ancestry. How can people find you to support what you do? Any of the causes that you are passionate about, how can our people find you?
Well, we're online at africanancestry.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook at African Ancestry, and on YouTube, we are at African Ancestry DNA.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Page. Appreciate your time and keep spreading the good word. Keep doing the good work because you never know whom you're touching, encouraging, or uplifting with your work. It means a lot to us.